And welcome to the HS Game Time Live. Blitz, Kyle's over here just texting away. And, you know, we've got a real treat towards the end of the show because Murrieta Valley head coach Vinny Fazio will join us as he breaks down their game against these guys, the Chaparral Pumas. And, you know, he's got practice tonight. A lot of teams do the Wednesday night practice thing, Kyle. So he's on the field with the Nighthawks right now, but he's going to get in his car, jam up here. And so if he's a little late, we'll hang around. Kyle has vowed to stay here all night long if that's what it takes to talk to Coach Fazio. That's how excited we are about this.
I've heard so much about the man, you know. When you get here first, you hear about all his things he did at Eisenhower, his great playing days in Fontana, and the legend of Vinny Fazio precedes him. So I'm looking forward to shake his hand and see him in the flesh.
Yeah, Nighthawks coming off a tough loss to Vista Murrieta, but still very much in the mix for a playoff spot. And Vinny doing a great job down there at Murrieta Valley. So we'll talk about their big game against Chaparral this Friday in Week 9 of the high school football season. That's the Big Ticket. KG, I'm Pep Fernandez. Thank you for joining us here on the HS Game Time Live Blitz. We're back here at Adrenaline Athletic Training in Corona. And we've got some of the softball girls out here, some training that was taking place behind us. I'm sure they'll be back out here in just a moment. A lot of the parents, though, tucked inside the nice lounge area watching the World Series. I'm sneaking some peeks in here,
It was 0-0 when we walked in, so I'm sure it's still the same because, you know, there hasn't been a lot of runs scored in this series aside from Game 1.
Hey, pitching wins World Series. That's what it wins titles, is pitching and defense. All right, but we're talking football now, and it's really getting juicy now, Kyle. With some of these games, I mean, league title implications, playoff positioning as teams, you know, jockey for the 2, 3, 4 spots and sneak into the playoffs here. In rivalry games, we had a bunch last week. We've got more this week on Friday. And let's start with a game that's just loaded for a lot of different reasons, the Smudgepot.
Yeah, Pep. I mean, I think this is probably the game of the week. There's a lot of teams 3-0 in their respective leagues going head-to-head, but this is the one to watch. Redlands and Redlands East Valley both went 1-4 non-league play against difficult schedules. Now they've both gone 3-0 in league play. Smudgepot is always heated. You've got a lot of these, you know, kids played against each other growing up. Redlands has sort of that small-town feel. These are really the two schools that have a lot of passionate alumni. 5,000 fans to 7,000 fans pack the stadium every year. So even if it was a game between two teams fighting for last place, it would still be heated and packed. These two teams are fighting for first place, and the winner gets a share of the CBL title while dealing their rival a serious blow to their hopes of league titles. So, I mean, there's just so much surrounding this game, and this has a chance to be one of the better Smudgepot games, one of the most important ones played in the series' almost 20-year history.
And Kyle, something that you've been following since this summer, the transfers. I mean, there's some Rev kids who transferred out of Redlands High School, and they're playing very important parts for the Terriers this season.
Once again, as if the Smudgepot rivalry needed any more extra juice to it. Yeah, nearly a dozen players transferred from Redlands East Valley.
We're seeing Cody Whitaker right there to Marcus Durham, two of them right there.
Yeah, Cody Whitaker and Marcus Durham, you know, starting quarterback and leading receiver respectively for Redlands, are former Rev guys that were on the other side of the Smudgepot game the last few years. So, you know, there's just that little extra added motivation. And I spoke with Redlands coach Jim Walker earlier. He was talking about now, you know, with social media, whichever team wins, the kids remind, you know, all their buddies who won every day of the year from, you know, the next year, for the next calendar year, via Facebook, Twitter, text messaging. You know, back in the old days, you just kind of put a W next to the schedule and it was done. Now these kids, you know, they have to hear about it all year if they lose, and none of them want to have that situation.
And if they stay in Redlands for the rest of their life, they'll hear it for the rest of their life. I know homecoming's a big deal. A lot of people go back to homecoming, but I think a lot of former players come back to town to see this game, Redlands against Redlands East Valley. Okay, so we've got the transfers, we got the fact that it's a rivalry game, and it's for first place. But you know it's a big high school football game, Kyle, when someone comes out with a rap about one of the teams in it. So I want to get this right. His name is Legend, and the song, I believe, is called Beware of Dog. And it's about the Redlands Terriers, and they also, you know, mention Redlands East Valley in the rap, and, of course, the Smudgepot. So we're going to play a little bit of that. Kyle, here's your headphone.
All right.
So this is, I guess you could say this is the world premiere of this song. So I want you to hear it. You're hearing it for the first time, right?
Yeah, I'm hearing it for the very first time.
I snuck a little sneak peek at this thing, but here we go. The world premiere.
We're the Terriers. 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 Known as champs in all areas. Every team in our division is fully aware of us. We hit hard, so be scared of us. Take a loss, not a chance. Just the thought of it seems hilarious. Black Dog D is intense. Beware with the dog, guard the Smudgepot. It's not easy to get. Want it back, that's a feeble attempt. The people came to see us. No one goes to your meager events. The whole squad showed up just to knock your sternum and see Cody Whitaker pass it to Marcus Durham.
Cody Whitaker,
We're just
Marcus
gonna roll
Durham.
over and do some tricks. Tracy catching the ball in the midst of a sprint. Victorious as they watch all of us put up a fist. Varsity football is what this crowd miss. While the Terriers chasing down diplomas and scholarships.
I love the name
might as
dropping.
well turn Wildcats in the meow mix. All rise in athletics and academics. The hardest hitting team in our division. We salute to the coaches, keep it tradition. We'll never fail. Success is our one and only mission. We're the Terriers.
I gotta give it credit. It's a good song.
It is. I like the part, the Wildcats about Meow Mix.
Yeah,
in the Smudgepot game.
Whoever Legend is, he's got it. He's got some skills. I like it. I love the name dropping, and maybe insert some new names in the future years. But I have a feeling that's something that'll stick. I'll be curious to see when I'm out at Dodge Stadium if that's blaring from the speakers at the stadium.
Speakers, because I believe Redlands is the home team, right?
I
Even though they
believe
both
so.
play at Dodge.
Yeah,
Okay.
Redlands is the home team, so who knows? But it's definitely entertaining. I like it better than the Super Bowl Shuffle.
Oh yeah, way
Oh, yeah.
better. What do you think are the odds that Jim Walker has that playing in his car as he drives around town?
Jim's pretty up with the times. You know what? He's an older guy. You might see him and think, oh, he's super old school. He was talked to him earlier, dropping all the different social media names. He knows exactly what's going on. Part of it
Is he on Twitter?
No, but he knows what Twitter and
he knows what
Instagram
it is.
are.
Okay.
So, and that's more than some coaches. So, no, Jim Walker, he's young at heart. So I'm sure he's probably become aware of the song.
And his son, Jimmy Walker, who was the quarterback last year, he's all over Twitter. I'm sure he keeps his dad informed of what's going on, between the Redlands and the Rev players, I'm sure.
So, so let's see. We got a rap song. We've got city rivalry. We've got first place and a share of the league title on the line. And then you also have a little bit of a revenge factor. Redlands East Valley had won 4 straight years, and then Redlands came in and beat them last year, 41-37, a close game. So Redlands East Valley wants to take it back. There's no question about it. The last 3 games between these two teams have been decided by a combined 13 points. 6 of the last 10 have been decided by 1 possession.
Yeah, it's really one of those games where you could have a team that's 9-0 and a team that's 0-9, but still when they get together, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be close. And if you want to chronicle the season, Kyle, Rev had that daunting non-league schedule where they took their lumps, and now they have a freshman starting at quarterback. And Redlands also, had some growing pains early on, but they've come on strong of late.
And this is what you want to see. These are 2 teams that are getting healthy as we reach the heart of league season. These are 2 teams that are playing at their best. These teams are not dragging their feet toward the finish line. That's what makes it so exciting. And, you talk about, if one was 9-0, one was 0-9. The nice thing is these 2 teams historically have been very competitive over the past decade. So, almost every year you're going to get a good matchup. And the Terriers and Wildcats, it should be another good one this year. I know I'm looking forward to covering it.
Huge rivalry game. Another game that's turning into a rivalry because it's Citrus Hill and Tahquitz. And because Citrus Hill is that team to beat right now in league, but Tahquitz seems to be that challenger that we've kind of kept an eye on all season long, and now it's shaping up to be a first-place battle in the Mountain Pass League. Is this the year that the Titans can actually do this?
I would say this is the best chance they've had. You look at the teams, they have identical 1-loss records. Both of their losses came against, good but not great inland division teams, Citrus Hill to King, Tahquitz to Murrieta Mesa. I think at the end of the day, this is really going to be about which team makes the fewest mistakes. Citrus Hill has made a lot of mistakes, but they also have a little bit more of a skill. I think they have a couple more skilled guys, so I think, the Citrus Hill, they have a little bit of a bigger margin for error. At the same time, Tahquitz is ready. They've been frothing at the mouth for this game. They feel like with Michael Stewart and Derek Peters, this is their year to finally beat Citrus Hill. This is the best chance you can argue they've ever had. They don't want to miss it.
They've got certainly a strong senior class at Tahquitz, and Citrus Hill, not that not that this is a bad team, but they've certainly had some very good teams the last couple of years, and this is this year's edition of the Hawks. Certainly in the mix for a CIF championship, but they got to get past Tahquitz first. And Coach Gregovich at Tahquitz hit me up on Twitter, and if you remember back to last week, West Valley almost knocked them off. I mean, I don't know if it was a case of looking ahead to Citrus Hill, but they squeaked past West Valley, and Coach Gregovich on Twitter said, man, I'm glad we, pulled out a win there because, the Mustangs certainly could have knocked them off and kind of ruined this first place battle that we see this week.
Absolutely, and give credit. These two teams, they're both 7-1. They've had some daunting schedules, and aside from that one loss, they've both come out of it, looking pretty good. And both these teams should be in the mix for the CIF championship. We saw last year they faced each other again in the semifinals of the CIF Eastern Division playoffs. It's very possible again. So this could just be Citrus Hill Tahquitz round 1.
All right, now moving on to yet another rivalry game. And you could say that Week 9 is maybe even more juicy than Week 10 just because there's some great matchups against rivals. The Rumble on Rimpaw, which, neighboring schools, Santiago and Centennial, just about 2 miles apart. Battle on Friday night, first place on the line. Will the Sharks be healthy enough to compete with the Huskies? That's the big question.
And I think actually the bigger question is if they are healthy enough, does it really matter? Centennial is just this giant that's dominated the Big 8 for years and years and years, and really the Inland Empire for years and years. Santiago's defense, at a certain point you have to just say, at this point of the season, Week 8, you're either good or you're not, and I believe you're only as good as your results. Well, Santiago's defense, the results have been awful this year against teams that have nowhere near the offensive firepower that Centennial does. So the Sharks are going to score. But the same thing at the same time, all those injuries, they were on offense. They started 10 of their opening day starters on defense last week and gave up 45 points to King. That is their first string defense, and I think Centennial is just there's just too many skill guys. They're too well coached. That offense is too fine-tuned. At the end of the day, this is the Huskies, Anything less than a Huskies comfortable victory would be a huge upset, I think.
And here's the deal with Centennial. You can't fight fire with these guys.
You can't try and match them.
Yeah, ask any other team. If you get into a shootout with these guys, they'll outlast you, and that's the problem. Like you said, if Santiago's defense can step up and make some plays.
But once again, it's one of those things where after 8 weeks, they haven't, so why would they start now against Centennial? Now, maybe they will, and I don't want to make it seem like the Sharks are hopeless and they shouldn't even play the game. That's not at all what I'm saying, but you have to understand that Centennial, sort of like Vista Murrieta down south, they just operate on a different level than all these other teams, and they're playing for second place. I think the best Santiago can hope for is show up, play good football, turnover-free football, stay healthy, and put up a good fight. I think if they do that, they'll have a lot to be proud of, even if they lose by 3 touchdowns, which, that's what Centennial does. They beat Big 8 teams by 3 or 4 touchdowns. Santiago can still come away feeling good about themselves, but
they need to get into the playoffs. I mean, wins are at a premium right now.
They do, and they are comfortable right now. They're in second place, and second place is theirs to lose. But just as we saw last year, they were in second place, 4-1, the best. Clearly, I think the second best team in the Big 8. Centennial still beat them 70-28, and yeah, they did lose their starting quarterback, but that's another risk again this year. Yep. So I think this is going to be a lot more about just how competitive is Santiago. Do they lose by 40 as they did last year, or do they lose by 20? I think that's sort of what you have to watch for them.
All right, so Blake Barnett, the quarterback, Joey Camarillo at running back, missed the last couple weeks. They did, pull out that victory against King in triple overtime. Another guy, I just want to give him a quick shout out, Ryan Tice, one of their star linemen injured before the season even started. He's back running on the track, which is great news. Fingers crossed, maybe we'll see Ryan before the end of the season if the Sharks can get into the playoffs and make this a deep run in this.
And look, Santiago should get into the playoffs. Like I said, second place is theirs to lose. They'll have an automatic berth. They probably should get a home game, finishing second in the Big 8 to open up. And if they win a playoff game, that would be a successful season for them because they haven't won one yet in the Jeff Steinberg era. But that said, I think for purposes of this game, look, Centennial's not going to be challenged probably until the semifinals. Most likely not until the finals, and that just is how it is every year, and there's no reason to think it's going to be any different in 2013.
All right, now we're moving on to the San Andreas League, and Kyle, San Gorgonio has been crying out, please give the Spartans some love. They're undefeated, and this is the week because they're playing possibly their toughest matchup leading up into the playoffs against Carter. Now, San Gorgonio, if you read by the numbers this past week in the newspaper, average margin of victory, 35 points. They're just not beating people. They're blowing teams out.
And it's more in league play. In league play thus far, 60-7 is the average score.
So Carter, very good, but young. They've got some good skill guys. They've been, they knocked off Colton. They've beaten some decent teams. When you look back at their their schedule, but certainly San Gorgonio is kind of a different animal at this point.
Yeah, if you look on the Cal Preps power ratings, even though San Gorgonio did beat 2 Inland Division teams, they beat Cajon and Yucaipa, Carter's actually the team with the highest rating on Cal Preps. So there's a lot of respect for Carter. They've won at least a share of the San Andreas League title the last 2 years. They're tough, they're physical, they run the ball very, very well. But San Gorgonio, like we mentioned, they're on a different level this year. You look at just the amount of skill guys they have, the coaching. Ron Garinger is going to be coaching the San Bernardino County All-Stars. I mean, he's a very well-respected coach. This is one of those years where everything is fitting perfectly into place for San G. They're going to go into this game, and probably every game from here on out the rest of the season, as a fairly comfortable favorite. Now, can Carter beat San G? Yes, but I think San G is going to be plenty motivated. This is their coming out party. I put them, I think, 7th in the poll this week. They came in at number 10. If they win this game, they'll easily jump up, 2 or 3 spots. I would absolutely, if they go and blow Carter out, that tells me that they're not just a very good team, they're an elite team in the inland area.
All right, so there you have it. San Gorgonio having a great season, maybe a Citrus Hill Finals in the Eastern Division, but that's still a long ways down the road. Okay, so we've just talked about 4 of the leagues. Let's see, it was the Citrus Belt, Mountain Pass, Big 8 League, and the San Andreas. Let's go ahead, Kyle. Let's be bold. Let's put out some league champions right now in Week 9 of the season. Who do you think will win those 4 league titles?
Once again, I'm a big believer, and you got to pick the guys who show they consistently do it year in and year out. Redlands East Valley, Corona Centennial, Citrus Hill, and then, San G, I believe, will win in the San Andreas League. But, those top 3 teams have all had, consecutive years of winning the league, and I'm not going to pick against them until they actually lose.
I like to be contrary to you, just for the simple fact it's fun. So I will go against the grain and pick all the teams who are considered, I guess, the underdog, right? I mean, the 4 you listed, I guess, are the favorites. I'll go underdogs in all these. I mean, you got to have something to play for, knock off your big rival, win a league title, surprise some people, so who knows?
Of those underdogs, I think Carter has the best chance just because they do have those 2 recent league titles. They do have the run game that can really control the clock and keep San G's offense off the field. So if I had to pick one that had the best chance, I'd go with Carter. But that said, I do expect those 4 favorites to not only win, but win with some level of comfort.
What about the Terriers? The Terriers.
And this was on the You Pick 'em show. I think Redlands is very talented. I think they're a playoff team. As we saw last year,
they've got a rap. They've got their own rap, Kyle.
Well, the Terriers last year, you remember, lost the Smudgepot game. Won the Smudgepot game. Then lost the league title with 2 losses.
Yeah.
But at the end of the year, they were the last Citrus Belt League team standing with a win and getting into the quarterfinals.
And do you remember who spoiled that for the Terriers?
I believe it was Yucaipa and Ike back to back.
Yeah, our guest, Vinny Fazio, who's coming up when he was at Ike.
So, I mean, Redlands, whoever loses this game is by no means, out of it. So I think that Redlands they're a good team. They have a very good defense that's very underrated. The offense is clicking into gear a little bit. Once again, I'm just inclined to go with Redlands East Valley because of the history there. But I wouldn't consider it a shocker.
Hold on. I know the hidden agenda. Your girlfriend, right? She's a Rev girl, right?
There's no hidden agenda here.
I'm married to a Terrier. It's okay.
No hidden agenda. But at the end of the day, once again, I think Redlands can win. I wouldn't be surprised. I think the team least likely to win is Santiago over Centennial out of those 4 we talked about.
But if the Sharks are healthy,
if the Sharks are healthy, they'll lose by 20 and not 40.
Kyle, give them a chance.
I just got to call them like I see them.
Sharks go on the road, knock off Goliath.
And once again, this isn't hating Santiago. I think they're an excellent team. I think I'm going to pick them probably to beat Norco. They beat Roosevelt. I mean, they've had a very good season. They gave Upland and Hart a run for their money. There is a lot to like about the Sharks, just not in this matchup.
All right, over in the Inland Valley League, it's pretty much decided already. The Rancho Verde will likely win the league title. Riverside Poly holding strong in second. After that, Kyle, it's an absolute mess. There's 4 teams battling for that 3rd position, and obviously playoff spots as you trickle down the standings.
Yeah, I mean, if you look down, Valley View, Arlington, North, and Canyon Springs, with that win over Arlington last week, put themselves in the conversation. Those 4 teams are fighting for, those final 3rd and maybe 4th playoff spots out of that league. And there's a lot of head-to-head matchups that are intriguing. I think the Inland Valley League race is actually going to be the most exciting league race these last 2 weeks, seeing, who can get into the playoffs. I think the 2 best teams out there are Valley View and Arlington of those 4. But we'll see. I mean, it could absolutely be North and Canyon Springs that slip in and get the playoff spots.
Yeah, they're just taking turns beating each other up, and that's the beauty of league play. And as we wind down with just 2 weeks left in the regular season. All right, over in the River Valley League, Norta Vista is ready to set sail to a second straight River Valley League title. They've never won back-to-back league titles in school history in football. And Kyle, I don't know if you heard this, but I'm doing my part to help the Braves.
Okay.
Because the last time I covered Norta Vista, it was against Murrieta Valley, and I saw head coach Ken Batdorf, and he said, Pep, love your coverage, love HS Game Time. You guys are great at the press enterprise. But for whatever reason, my team does not play well when you're around. When you're gone, we are so much better. So I got my highlights, and I scooted out and let them do their thing. When I left, they did have the lead on Murrieta Valley, and they ended up winning. So as my gift to Novi, I'll just stay away from the program so they can win a River Valley League title. Unless, I mean, maybe someone from Moval or Patriot. I mean, I can be sweet-talked if you want me to show up to the Novi games. I mean, gonna jinx them. I'm just kidding. But, yeah, so Norta Vista, they're in the driver's seat right now looking for back-to-back league titles. But another great one, and we'll talk about this in the Tell Me Why game, Patriot and Moval battle essentially for second place in the River Valley League.
Yeah, I mean, those are two teams that, have definitely suffered some losses that were a little bit of a setback, but they're two teams that have talent, have a little bit of history of success, so it'll be interesting to see how those two come down. La Sierra as well, they're right in the mix in the River Valley League. Well, I don't think, obviously, the overall quality in the River Valley League is as good as the Inland Valley League. In terms of that race, trying to figure out who's going to get in, it's definitely exciting, and I also want to see how these teams perform down the stretch to see how they're going to do in the playoffs. You look across the Eastern Division, Mojave River League, Desert Sky League, San Andreas League. I mean, they're all, solid leagues that have some good top-heavy teams. The River Valley League, because it's a new league, really hasn't proven yet that they can compete in the Eastern Division playoffs. So I want to see how those teams, how they look these last 2 weeks to maybe give us some insight into, going into the postseason. Can they win some games? Can the River Valley League send 2 or 3 teams into the quarters? It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, that's even like going back to Redlands Rev. You don't want to be backing into the playoffs. You want to be playing strong, and obviously Novi's playing strong.
Although going back to Redlands Rev, some say you're actually better off being the third-place team in the CBL than the first-place team.
I've heard that chatter.
Because the first-place team in the CBL typically gets the third-place team in the Big 8, and they're not even favored in a lot of those games. But the third-place team in the CBL will get the winner of the Baseline League or one of the Sierra League.
Yeah.
We saw Redlands beat the heck out of Chino Hills last year, 55-27 in that 3-1 matchup, while Rev, hung with Norco for a half, and then Norco outscored them, I believe, 26-0 after halftime. So maybe you do want to back in sometimes.
Now, you know what? I don't mind saying this, I finished dead last in the U Pick'em contest last year, but I did pick Redlands over Chino Hills. And like I said, I'm married to a terrier. I had to do it. What else am I supposed to do? Pick against Redlands when you live with one? All right, moving on. We got to thank Adrenaline one more time because they've been such gracious hosts. The softball players are doing their thing. Now, the boot camp's out here too, but I think that's an actual softball team, but they run them through the drills and the training for conditioning and cardio and whatnot. And it's kind of funny because you see Big Leonard Russell, former Arizona State star and NFL running back, and he's over there. He's like the loud, positive cheerleader. He's not breaking anybody down. He's like, "Oh, you can do it. You're doing great. Keep going. You're, faster. You can do it." He's like one of those guys.
Oh, yeah. And he's a big guy. Sometimes you see those running backs that are 5'10", 180.
No, that's
Russell's.
Not, yeah.
Leonard's a big guy. 6'2", 230. Definitely a bruising back type. So definitely cool. Seeing him. He's a lot larger than a lot of the people he's training, so it's kind of interesting visually, but gets the job done. He's good at what he does, like all Sun Devils.
If you saw him, I would say he looks like a defensive end. Is that
he absolutely looks like a linebacker,
DN
type. So, no, he's a big guy, and sometimes seeing him with, high school age, kids.
Some of these girls are like 8, 9 years old over here,
Yeah, so, but, he's good at what he does.
Absolutely. All right, so once again, we're at Adrenaline Athletic Training in Corona. They also have the Riverside location. Hopefully we'll be back at the Riverside location sometime soon, but this Corona place is really great. And like we said, there's a lounge with the parents, and the World Series is on.
I think I saw Nickelodeon on one of the TVs, too, so if, the little siblings want to come along, too.
That's right. I mean, because, if you've got an older brother or sister that's working out here, do you want to watch the World Series? No, you want to watch Gummy Bears or whatever kids watch these days.
SpongeBob, I think, is still around.
SpongeBob, that's right. I just dated myself. I used to watch Gummy Bears when I was a little kid. All right, Kyle, you're working on a pretty cool column that has a football as well as a volleyball tie.
Yeah, so Heritage senior outside hitter Dayanara Teodi, her older brother was actually former USC offensive lineman Fred Matua. He was a starting lineman on those national championship teams in 03 and 04, paved the way for Heisman Trophy winners Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush. He died suddenly at the age of 28 last year from a heart condition. And his sister, Dayanara, over at Heritage, has really, she's really tried to, channel him and how she plays. She changed her jersey number from 12 to 51, which was his number in college, and just the same energy he played with. He was known as a very loud, very passionate, very feisty guy on the line, and she's really trying to emulate that. And it's a really cool story of seeing how this heartbreak of this family, losing a brother, losing a son, and how they're trying to keep him alive, in spirit through the way she plays, even though he isn't. He's no longer physically with us.
What a great way to honor her brother like that.
Yeah, she wears his jersey number. Her entire family has shirts, bracelets. They're always wearing something that has a reference to him on them at every minute of every day. She looks towards the sky before every match, and then she tries to go out and play like he does. And it's cool to see. That column will be out on Friday, and just hope I do it justice.
All right, and you should mention that Heritage, thanks to her, is in the playoff hunt, right? I mean, they could get into the playoffs.
Yeah. I think they were 4-3 at the time. I think they're playing right now actually against Lakeside. But yeah, they're 4-3. So they're right on the cusp there. And we talk about football playoffs. Volleyball's got some interesting playoff matches. Matches, I should say, taking place with playoff implications. Saw Poly and Valley View yesterday, going out to Canyon Springs, Vista del Lago tomorrow for a battle in the Inland Valley League. Fontana's playing Summit right now.
That's right.
First place in the Summit in the San Andreas League. In the Sunkist League. Too many leagues. I'm getting them all confused.
They shift around a lot too.
Yeah. But really just wherever you look, there's a lot of good league volleyball battles going on. So if you can't wait until Friday to get some playoff action, check out the schedules. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're right in the hunt for volleyball playoffs, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, two leagues that at this point aren't very competitive in the Big 8 league. Santiago has not dropped a game, a set all season long.
They're doing their best Penn State impression from the mid-2000s when they just never lost.
They are. They're dominating right now. And over in the Southwestern League, Great Oak remains undefeated. Yeah, Chaparral and Temecula Valley are on their heels, but it looks like Great Oak could finish off a perfect league season and would be the Wolfpack's first Southwestern League title since 2006. Sports writer Jeff Parenti caught up with Great Oak last night, Tuesday night, as they took on Vista Murrieta and picked up a 3-game sweep against the Broncos. The Great Oak volleyball team is one step closer to winning an outright Southwestern League championship, the Wolfpack's first since 2006. Great Oak swept Vista Murrieta in 3 straight on Tuesday night, 25-18, 25-14, and 25-12 to clinch at least a share of the league crown. The Wolfpack will need to win one of its final 3 matches to win the outright title. Great Oak is 7-0 in the Southwestern, 21-1 overall on the year. Sports writer Jeff Parenti caught up with the Wolfpack following their win versus the Broncos.
I felt like we worked together as a team so well. We said before the game that we need to stay as a pack and stay together, and I felt like that's what we did, and we just completely overpowered them.
Because our errors were to the minimum. We literally executed the first goal every single time.
So we definitely didn't come in thinking this was going to be an easy match. We thought it was going to be a fight to the end. So we were really excited that it turned out the way it did, and we got to pull ahead and keep the lead the whole game.
So Great Oak on a roll right now, on pace for a Southwestern League championship, their first since 2006. So we like to give volleyball a little bit of love here on the Blitz, because football season, before you know it, right around the corner, will come to a close, and we'll talk a lot of basketball, wrestling, as well as soccer here for the winter sports. But back to football, a lot of unfinished business on the gridiron still to get to. Now in the Sun Belt League, Heritage has the inside track to win the league championship, but a game that has some importance on Friday is Paloma Valley taking on Temescal Canyon. Can the Wildcats bounce back after the loss to the Menifee Bowl? While Temescal Canyon, we've said it all along, had to knock off one of the big 3 to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, Temescal Canyon, this is if they lose, they're done. It's that simple. If they win, they're right in the thick of the race. So this is a must-win for Temescal Canyon. They've lost to Heritage. They've lost to Elsinore. They're 3-5. They really need to finish, at 500. They close with Paris, so they're gonna get one more win. this game right here is going to make or break their season. We talked about they had some losses early that didn't look too pretty. 32-0 to Temecula Valley comes to mind. So this is their chance to bounce back and maybe salvage something of what's been a disappointing season. Paloma Valley, on the other hand, they still should be the second-place team in the Sun Belt League, but they have to win this game. This is, one of those games where, they're going to be facing a team that's hungry, that's fighting for their lives. If Paloma Valley has any type of hangover from the loss in the Menifee Bowl, a 23-point loss nonetheless, and they're banged up a little bit, it's going to be interesting to see if Paloma Valley comes out fired up and they're ready to go. Because I think if Paloma Valley comes out and plays to the best of their ability, they should win fairly easily. But once again, we have to watch and see if there's any bit of a hangover. And if there is, the Sun Belt League race, which looked orderly for a little bit, could get thrown into turmoil.
Well, that's a precarious situation. A team that's desperate with nothing to lose like Temescal Canyon, they know their playoffs start now, taking on a Paloma Valley team who, hopefully for their sake, they're not, still the lingering effects of, dropping a huge rivalry game. And, they were undefeated going into the Menifee Bowl against Heritage. So how will the Wildcats respond against Temescal Canyon? But Heritage, they've got, I believe it's Lakeside on Friday, so likely to go 9-0. And then in the final week of the season, though, it's Heritage and Elsinore. That could have some implications as well. Yeah,
the Sun Belt League is one of the leagues that isn't decided yet. I think we've talked about a lot of these other leagues. The champion has either been decided or there's some consensus who the champion's going to be. I think in the Sun Belt League, everyone expects it to be Heritage, but you could argue maybe it's in a little bit more of a precarious situation than some of the others, just because of the respect Elsinore has earned over the years.
It was great to see, though, that an undefeated Paloma Valley team go into the Menifee Bowl. It's kind of, add some spice to that game, like we were talking about the Smudgepot. It's, just to add another layer to an already great rivalry game. With Paloma Valley being undefeated, it's easy to fall in love with an undefeated team.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But once again, there were questions about Paloma Valley and the strength of their schedule. And when they beat Elsinore, some of those questions...
Moreno Valley earlier.
Some of those questions went away a little bit, but then facing a team like Heritage, who was just on another level, it wasn't much of a contest. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the Wildcats bounce back.
All right, now to the Mountain Valley League, Kyle, and it's been turned upside down. I mean, Rim of the World was, one of the top-ranked teams in the CIF East Valley Division, the favorite to win the league title after, falling just short of Banning last year. And then Jurupa Hills knocks off the Scots, and now we have pretty much a free-for-all, even though Jurupa Hills looks like the team to beat now with 2 weeks to go in the Mountain Valley.
We've been saying it for weeks. This is the most exciting and most fun league race around, not just in this league, but in this entire division. Every week, things change. Jurupa Hills obviously now in the driver's seat after beating Rim of the World. Banning coming out of nowhere and beating Rubidoux, all of a sudden they're in the playoff race. I mean, in the 6-team league, you have 5 teams with,
That's
playoff
the beauty
hopes.
Of it, yeah.
So, it's a lot of fun, and there is some good talent. Obviously it's not at the level of the Central Division or the Inland Division, but quality is decent, and it's a fun ride. I think, once again, if you're just a football fan in general, you like excitement, you like drama, you like the unexpected, Mountain Valley League is the way to go.
Now we're looking at some video of a guy that you know pretty well from the High Desert, right? Brett Kokesh, the running back for Citrus Valley, who was a huge part of helping them beat Notre Dame last Thursday night.
Yeah, 253 rushing yards. And we talked about, what is the impact that these transfers are going to have, because there's so many transfers every year. And Kokesh, he's battled some injuries, but he's one of those guys, towards the end of the year now, Citrus Valley trying to make a playoff push could end up being, a difference maker. A lot of these teams might find themselves relying on a guy they didn't have in previous years once you get into the postseason. Redlands East Valley with Anthony Grayson is he's been a big addition. We've seen obviously Vista Murrieta with all their transfers making a big helping them. That might be what puts them over the top in terms of actually winning an Inland Division championship this year as opposed to last. This is fun to see how these transfers affect the league races, and some of them are already having their impact, like Kokesh or the Colton Gerhardts of the world.
Yeah, Sam Whaleu at Riverside Poly, another instrumental piece for the Bears.
Poly at Norta Vista, yeah.
I mean, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of great transfers. I mean, even the Rev and Redlands game we went over. But Citrus Valley goes up the mountain to Rim of the World, which is never an easy place to win. But going back to last week, they played Notre Dame. Both teams were 0-2 going into the game. It was almost essentially a must-win game for both of those teams to stay in the playoff mix. Citrus Valley did get the win 28-14, and now the Blackhawks head up to the mountain looking to knock off Rim of the World with still, a great chance of making the postseason.
And Rim's going to be favored. We mentioned their credentials, but it would be very much in the vein of the Mountain Valley League this year for Citrus Valley to go up and pull off a shocking win, just because that's how this league is played out. Unfortunately, the only constant has been Notre Dame still can't seem to win a league game. They've lost 10 straight now, and they play Banning this week. I think a lot of people going into that would have thought, the Titans can beat Banning. Well, then Banning beat Rubidoux, and all of a sudden you're not so sure anymore. So I feel a little bad for Notre Dame. They're a little left out right now, but the other 5 teams in that league, Banning put themselves in the race. Harupa Hills, obviously, with that huge win over Rim. It's exciting, that's for sure.
Meaningful games all the way down to the finish. If you remember last year, while Bannings with Styrone Hairston and Rim of the World had Jacob Taylor, they were just kind of running away with it. Citrus Valley beat Rim of the World in the regular season last year. That was one of the few blemishes en route to the Scots CIF championship. So Citrus Valley's done it before. Granted, it was in Redlands. Now they have to go up to the mountain. That's a different story.
It is. And you think about all the different leagues around. You can pretty much in every league figure out who the 3 automatic playoff berths are going to. Some teams have already clinched a playoff spot. Mountain Valley League, I feel like, is the only one where you genuinely have no idea who the heck's getting into the playoffs.
And that's what makes it great. So we caught up with Citrus Valley head coach Pete Smolin and the running back Kokesh following their victory against Notre Dame last Thursday. They talked about the win and what it means going forward as the Blackhawks are now right in the middle of a playoff hunt.
And someone's got to make a move, so it was good, that we put the effort in this week and it got a big jump on the start there.
We have so much potential, so much skill. We just have simple mistakes that we need to cut down on, and if we do that, we can make CIF run.
All right, so that was Brett Kokesh, their star running back, who's really done a great job for Citrus Valley, had a huge game against Notre Dame. And the Blackhawks now trying to spread their wings and fly up at Lake Arrowhead against a very good Rim of the World team who doesn't lose very often, and I'm sure they're hungry to get back on the field and kind of reverse what happened at Harupa Hills last Friday.
Absolutely. Jamie Taylor, one of the best running backs around. Does that sound familiar? A Taylor at Rim of the World,
I know.
one of the best backs around.
Kind of like the Hefos at Heritage, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So, we'll see if Citrus Valley is able to stop him because, that's the key to stopping Rim of the World right there, and not many people can do it.
Now we're on to the Sunkist League, where Kaiser has jumped into the driver's seat at 3-0 so far in league play. They're coming off a big win against Summit, but I should say the Skyhawks' Eric Brown was recently selected to the U.S. Marine Corps' Semper Fidelis All-American Bowl, which will be January 5th at the StubHub Center in Carson, formerly the Home Depot Center, but it's the StubHub Center now. So congratulations to Eric Brown. But his Skyhawks are now a game back of Kaiser in the Sunkist League standings with 2 to go. And Summit has, Kaiser beat Summit, but the Cats have a tough stretch these last 2 with Colton and Grand Terrace coming up, Kyle.
Yeah, Colton, Grand Terrace, and Summit are all 2-1 in league play. Kaiser at 3-0. So that one's tight as well. It's also one of those leagues that's sort of undetermined. I think most people expect Kaiser and Summit to be in there, as they always are. Colton with their head-to-head win over Grand Terrace.
I was a little surprised. Were you surprised by that score? 28-6, the final.
Yeah, I think that the thing is, if you look, Colton had just played a much tougher schedule up to that point. So their record, and Grand Terrace's record, even though the numbers were similar, I think Colton, the fact they played a much tougher schedule had them just playing at a higher level. So I think Colton has the inside track there, and those are probably the 3 teams that are going to make it. That said, figuring out what order they're going to be in is going to be interesting. You mentioned Kaiser versus Colton. If Colton can beat Kaiser, all of a sudden, there's potential for a 3-way tie for first place at the end of this week with 1 game to go. So along with the Mountain Valley League, the Sunkist League is one of the fun ones to watch.
Wild finishes there. All right. As we said, Vinny Fazio, head coach at Murrieta Valley, down with his Nighthawks at practice, but on the road, maybe in Corona right now. I'm not sure, but he'll be here shortly to join us on the Blitz and break down their game with Chaparral. Kyle has vowed to stay here all night until Coach Fazio gets here. He's going to work out with the softball girls over here. And
hey, after sitting around all day, I'm definitely antsy to go work out.
I am too. I think that basketball hoop over here is calling our name. If we need to, maybe we'll just flip the camera around. People can watch us take some 3-point shots.
Might be ugly.
It'll be really ugly. If we had Jeff Roney here, he could give us some tips. Coach Roney, quite the 3-point threat. All right, we're going to play the Tell Me Why game, okay, Kyle. And for people just joining us, let's go over the rules. So here's the deal. we're going to ask a question to each other, and you have to answer it, whether you believe it or not. I could say, Kyle, do you believe in aliens? Are aliens real?
Tell me why the sky is pink.
Yeah, and even
you have
though
to make the argument that it is.
Yeah, even though you might not personally feel that way, you've got to make a case. It's like a lawyer, like someone hires you, you got to defend them, right? Whether
mock trial status.
There you go. So I'll pick one for you first.
Okay.
I see you're ready to go.
Oh yeah, rip roaring, ready to go.
So as I'm looking at you and you're answering the question, I'm going to peek over at the World Series. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Get a score update. All right, Kyle.
Pep.
This one's right up your alley. Tell me why Beaumont, Miller, or Pacific will pick up a win this season. So you can pick one of them, you can pick more than one of them, but tell me why Beaumont, Miller, or Pacific will pick up a win this season. They are all winless right now.
I think it's going to end up being Miller. I think they're the team best in position to win because if you look, they had a couple of very close games earlier this year. They're going to face Cajon in the final game of the season. Cajon just had 7 fumbles against Redlands, which is similar to what Miller's been doing with a lot of turnovers. It could be one of those games where it just comes down to turnover, and Miller has playmakers. I think that they're the team with the best chance to come out with a win, and so I'll go with the Rebels.
Kind of surprised Don Markham didn't pick somebody off along the way. He the Markham magic, at Pacific.
I think, it just shows, the level Pacific's at. I think in past years, Pacific has had a couple of guys. Quincy Ross was a decent quarterback. Yeah. But, this is really starting from the bottom. Markham took over a Bloomington team that was 1-9 and turned them into a juggernaut within a year. Pacific clearly is going to take a little bit longer, and we'll see if he can get it off the ground. But I think of those 3 teams, Miller's the one with the best chance to win a game.
If anyone can do it, it would be Markham at Pacific. All right. Tell me why. Oh, yeah.
Tell me why San Gorgonio will go undefeated this season and win the CIF Eastern Division title.
All right. Well, if you
14-0.
14-0, and there's some good teams in the Eastern Division, including defending champion Citrus Hill. If you go on Twitter, San Gorgonio, they want some love. They need some credit. I don't want to say been flying under the radar, but apparently we haven't been talking enough about them. So Spartans, here's your chance to shine. You beat Carter on Friday night. You're already in the HS Game Time top 10. I think we'll all be believers going forward that you're going to be a San Andreas League champion. And I'm not real familiar with those high desert teams. I know Citrus Hill obviously was one of those teams that they'll have to get past at some point, whether it's in the finals or maybe
Serrano's
in the semis.
been to 4 straight semifinals.
Serrano, yeah. That's who Citrus Hill beat in the finals last year.
That's who Citrus Hill beat last year. So
San Gorgonio beat Carter on Friday. I've got you beating Carter on Friday as long as my picks in the paper are right because they were wrong last week. But anyways, that's not the point here. Beat Carter on Friday. I believe in you guys. If you beat Carter on Friday, I think a lot more people will be believing in the Spartans going forward. So, Sanji, this is for you. 14-0, CIF champions. Tons of talent on that team. Why not?
Can I add something?
Sure.
They make fewer mistakes than Citrus Hill, and they match them skill for skill. Serrano, who's excellent, you can't beat them if you try and double wing and run the ball down their throats. You can only beat them if you have a lot of speed and a lot of athletes on the outside, which Citrus Hill and Summit have had in recent years, the teams that beat Serrano. That's what Sanji's got. Sanji, I think, is probably the team that matches up with Serrano best, and they also can outclass Oak Hills. So for me, it's Sanji. They'll go undefeated because they're the best team, period.
Now, Brett Kokish, he came from Oak Hills?
Yes.
Is that right? So what if Oak Hills had Kokish? Okay, that's a different story.
Right, hypothetical universe. They need him right now because their starting running back, DeJounte Fletcher, snapped his ankle, broke his ankle against Serrano. So they could really actually use Kokish right now.
High desert knowledge you will get nowhere else. And Serrano is the Diamondbacks?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Fear the purple and the blue.
Purple and blue?
They have all sorts of colors. Some blue, some white, some purple. They're like Oregon. They throw on a different jersey combination every game.
That is a bizarre color scheme. Oh my gosh, we got a big-time star in the house, so we're going to wrap this up pretty soon. All right, tell me why Patriot wins a co-championship in the River Valley League.
Because Norte Vista will be caught off guard. Because Patriot has a chance, I believe they can beat Moreno Valley and Norte Vista down the stretch. And I think that Patriot, they're a little frustrated after losing to La Sierra big. We saw them beat Harupa Valley. I think it was 41-14. Yep. They're taking that frustration out. Moval and Norte Vista might think, yeah, we got this, no problem. Patriot surprises them. Before you know it, they're 4-1 and co-champs. And if they do that, they'd be the #1 seed in the playoff for the playoff seedings.
Just ask Redlands head coach Jim Walker. Twitter is a beautiful thing. People from Patriot all over Twitter saying, don't count us out. They've got 2 big games to finish the year. Could change the complexion of the River Valley League, but we'll have to see. All right, Kyle, I'm really, really sorry. I accidentally ripped this ripped this one as
See if
I
I can
yours.
figure it out. It's a little bit like a puzzle piece.
Yeah, so.
All right, Pep. Tell me why 1-3 Canyon Springs can leapfrog North, Arlington, and Valley View for a playoff spot.
I guess they can, right? I mean, they're all like 2-1, or they're all 1-2, right? I think Paulie's 2-1, and
they're somewhere around there.
So they're all in the mix. Okay, so how does Canyon Springs get in? Well, they got to beat Vista Del Lago and Valley View to finish up the season, obviously, right? They got to finish with 2 straight wins.
Those games are winnable.
Those are 2 games. I mean, Valley View might be a little closer, but obviously, maybe Canyon Springs would be the favorite, at least going into both of those games. They've already beat Arlington head-to-head, so they got that going for them against the Lions. So I really don't think it's a huge stretch to say Canyon Springs is a playoff team. And Kyle, I got to say this, just like saying Gorgonio was saying, man, well, you guys don't give us any love. People have been telling me I don't give Canyon Springs any love. I don't know. People must think I don't like anybody.
Well, I think some of that Canyon Springs has to earn the love. Sanji's earned the love by starting out 8-0 and beating their opponents 60-7 in league play.
Yeah,
Canyon Springs has a little bit of work to do, but there actually is a road there. That win against Arlington is what paved this road.
Yeah, and that was a great game. We had some highlights of that finish, kind of a wacky finish where interceptions were going back and forth, and it was a 2-point conversion that they turned Arlington away. That was the deciding factor, a 27-25 victory. So Canyon Springs, just like Sanji, here's your moment. I got you going to the playoffs. So Cougars, you are a playoff team. All right, Coach Vinny Fazio, why don't you come over here and join us?
The legend, the man, the myth, the legend, making his way.
Hey, Kyle, why don't you start talking to Coach for a second, and I'm going to adjust the camera real quick, and we'll talk to Coach Fazio from Murrieta Valley.
All right, sounds good. We are joined by Vinny Fazio, first-year Murrieta Valley coach. First of all, Coach, I want to give you this mic.
Oh, great.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, first of all, I have to say your reputation precedes you a little bit. Coming from the football family that you do, do you find that a lot when people go around and they say, Fazio, I know that name?
Yeah. Usually it strikes a chord, but it's usually for Skip, and so I'm good with that. I'm under the radar a little bit. I let him take some of that stuff, and we just try to do a good job. We try to keep our heads down and work as hard as we can, and so far it's been all right for us.
Now I have to ask, do you pay attention at all to see how your old boys at Ike are doing?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I'm still really
What do you
close.
make of the job Mike Clark has done over there?
Coach Clark, I'm really close with him, and Coach Strikula and I, who's called in our offense, we email, once every week or a couple of weeks and stay in touch. I'm really happy with them, really proud of them. That was one of the number one things that was important to me, and was that I wanted those kids to have a really good experience, because those kids didn't do anything wrong. All they did was do everything right. And I'm glad it looks like they're going to get in the playoffs if they can win a couple here at the end, and looks like a winnable game for them, and win one, they can get in the playoffs. And maybe you never know if they can knock Rev off. You never know. They're right there, and chance to maybe win a league championship again. So yeah, really happy for them. And Micah St. Andrew, their big offensive lineman, is one of my favorite players in the whole world. So always happy for Micah, and hope they do well here.
Absolutely,
Coach. Kyle wanted to bring the chaparral halfway. No, it was my idea.
I'm glad it's here.
It was my idea. I brought the Pumas helmet out. But I got to ask you, you're always in a good mood. You're always fired up. You're always smiling. But it kind of cracks me up because I think you described your defense to me as a bad mood defense. You want to get to the ball in a bad mood and be physical. But you're like one of the, most, your motor's always running, always smiling, always excited about the situation. Just talk about your season and, and how Murrieta Valley has done, and are you excited about where the Nighthawks are going?
I'm really proud of our kids. I mean, what they've been asked to do is so difficult. Our staff took over in July, literally in July. That was the first time we were able to work football with our kids. And to be, we're 5-3, and we're competitive. We want to win every game. But 5-3 with our losses to